against domestic violence, and we survivors have a voice. Please welcome our hosts, JT, Stephanie, and Jenn.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Fortified podcast. We're in episode 3. We are continuing on the conversation that we had with Jenn in episode 2. And leading up to this point, Jenn has told her story up to the point where she's about to leave Wisconsin and go stay with my father for the summer. So if you missed episode 2, might be a good idea to just go back and watch that. I know it's a long one, but it really is going to give you context on the story as a whole. But for those of you who just don't feel like that, I'm going to just turn it over to Jenn and have her give it just a quick recap, and then she'll go ahead and continue on the story, and then we'll come in with questions and we'll just have a conversation. So Jenn, if you want to just give us a recap on where we're at in the story.
Yeah. Okay. So I was in a 20-year marriage, and started out, our background is we grew up in a Christian home. I went to a Christian Bible college. That's where I met my husband. We went into business, had 5 kids. Stuff happened, life happened. Things were not entirely functional, normally functioning, but I didn't know any better. And we had our own version of normal. It did, for the most part, my whole marriage, I felt insignificant and unheard and just very small, like unvalued. I felt stupid most of the time. So, but then it all, he started struggling with some mental health issues, some depression, insomnia. The business started struggling. Some other personal things happened with a church we were going to. So it was just stuff with our kids. Like our daughter was struggling with some stuff, some hard things. Everything kind of came to a head at one time, kind of created this perfect storm for really to destroy us, for lack of a better way to sum it up. And so that happened. Our business kind of crashed. We tried to save it. It didn't really work. He kind of lost his way in life, and we kind of found ourselves in this space where I was desperately crying out for help, and he refused to get help or allow me to get help. So I found myself in a place where I had no other option for my own sanity and for the good of our 5 kids, really, to leave. I was considering leaving. We had met with a counselor one time, and I kind of laid it out that, hey, if something doesn't change, and I mean like today, like now, I need to start heading in a right direction. Not like it has to change overnight, but if we can't start heading in a right direction and start making some good decisions that are going to be positive toward, good change, then I can't do this anymore. I'm going to leave. So that brings us to where we're at now. I mean, I don't really know how you can get very much context for this part of the discussion without going back and listening to the whole episode. So I would encourage everybody to do that. But so we left Wisconsin. When the day after we left, he woke up, and so like if you hear from him now, he looks back on this time and says that they just disappeared in the middle of the night and no warning. I went to bed and everybody was there. When I woke up, everybody was gone. And I can see how he thinks it that way because of, everything that he was going through, the debilitating depression, the insomnia, the drinking to try to, sleep, and also probably numb a lot of the pain that he was going through. I guess, yeah, I can see why a person wouldn't hear another person say, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. But it was a few times, especially within a short amount of time, at least a week. I want to say at least 3 times that week, I said, we're going to leave if X, Y, and Z doesn't start happening. We left. The very next day after we left, he started texting me, calling me, blowing me up. Where are you guys? What's going on? I told him what happened. Well, he told me that, now I think it took him a couple of days to actually get a hold of me or to call me. That's a little fuzzy because it wasn't immediate. Because when he actually got a hold of me, it was from a hospital bed. I was like, at first I didn't believe him. But what happened was, because he was pre-diabetic for a long time and he had been not eating and drinking some water, but I'm sure not enough, and just pretty much living on Mike's Hard Lemonade and a few other beverages, he really did crash health-wise. So he went into a diabetic ketoacidosis and ended up in having to drive himself to the hospital because he said that he wasn't sure if he would make it if he had to wait for an ambulance to get there. So he just jumped in his car and took off. He thought he was having a heart attack, so he ended up, in collapsing in the ER, and they got him patched up, and he spent, I don't know, a couple of days, I think, in the hospital so they could get his levels all back to good again. So he goes back home. He's in full diabetes at this point, has to do the whole regimen of, keeping up with that. Begged me to come back, and I stuck to my guns, and I said, I warned you this would happen. I cannot come back. I can't do it. You need to go and talk to a counselor, talk to your family, talk to people who care about you, try to get some other help, because I'm spent. I can't be the one carrying this load anymore, and I need to go and get a break and clear my head. So I'm not coming back. I did not come back. The whole summer then we spent at our parents' house. I ended up talking to him once a week, and it was the same conversation over and over again. He was a mess, and he was a mess, and begged me to come back every single time. My question every time was, well, who else have you talked to? What kind of help are you getting? And it was the same story. So I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. And, I'm sure somebody else, I'm sure this is not just a me thing. Thinking about going back, not only to him, but to our home that all this happened in, and the town that all this happened in, and just going back into that environment that had been such a dark place for me, I just couldn't handle it. And as the summer went on, I started kind of seeing more and more light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. My head cleared a little bit better. I was able to get more of a grasp on life, I guess. About August, sometime in August came around, and I kind of had a realization that I was a bit at a crossroads. I started thinking ahead, school's about to start again. We're in Pennsylvania. The kids' schools are in Wisconsin. I'm going to have to make a decision here. Am I going to carry this out and am I going to stay in Pennsylvania, or are we going to go back to Wisconsin? And I still could not handle, I I just couldn't handle the thought of going back to Wisconsin. I just figured, if I go back, things might be better for a little bit, but it's going to go right back to the way it was. So I'm just going to get sucked back in.
Yeah. So the whole summer, you all were like talking once a week and stuff, and seemed like the same conversation. Was there any like, because it sounds like you had some pretty clear parameters. Like, I'm not going to consider coming back until you get some type of help. Was there any attempt or on his part to like actually get help, or was he just still like, I refusing help? He just, you were the help. Hey, come back and help me get back up on my feet. Like, I'm assuming that some of that stuff had to come into play, because if he's asking you to come back, like, you're sticking to your gun saying, well, no, the only way I'm coming back to this is if you go and like fix yourself. So were there any conversations around that throughout that entire summer?
Oh yeah. I mean, every time we talked, that came up because I stuck to that boundary. Like, I'm not changing that, like, you need professional help. We need professional help. I need counseling. I did, when I was in Pennsylvania, I got hooked up with a counselor. I don't think I met that person very many times before the next part of the story, just because of scheduling and things like that. But I did meet with that counselor once or twice. And my plan was to continue going. I was convinced I needed help. I couldn't wait to get some kind of help. But no, he did not get any kind of help. It was all he could do to manage his diabetes at this point by himself, having to, feed himself and keep track of all of his medicine and things like that. I think there was a nurse coming in once or twice a week to, I don't know, make sure that he did the right things.
I'm just thinking from my perspective as a man, as a husband, as a father, if my wife left me and took my daughter because of something in my life that I was doing and gave me an ultimatum of like, yes, you need to get professional help. At that point, I'm already at rock bottom, and at least for me, like, I'm already at rock bottom. My pride is out the window. My ego's out the window. If I really want my family back, I'm going to just suck it up and go get the help. And then maybe I might actually get help, like receive words that like, I'd be like, oh wait, I didn't think this would work. I was just doing this to appease my wife so she comes back to me. But hey, maybe like, because professional therapists and stuff, they can dig through all of that fakeness, right? So from my perspective, I'm like, well, if I really want my family back, I'm gonna go get the help I need. Now, to be fair, I've been at rock bottom before, but I haven't been at that rock bottom. So I can't speak from experience of what's potentially going through his mind. But for me, I'm just like, if you really want your family back and stuff, like, go just do what your wife is asking you to do and go get some help and go talk to somebody and just see if it makes it better. You've tried everything else up to this point. Like, you tried to do it yourself. Like, you thought like, and that's not working. Like, what's the fix here? And as a guy, like, I'm in like Mr. Fix-It mode, and guys tend to be like, just tell me what I need to do to fix it. Like, or they see a problem, they're like, I'm going to figure out how to fix that. Like, what's the fix? I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. Like, what's the fix? And I can't come up with anything. So that's just kind of like my comment about that, is like the whole summer went by and you kept sticking to your guns. So at some point in that summer, those phone calls, if it were me, I'm like, okay, I'm not changing her mind. So it looks like I'm just going to have to do this junk, whether I agree with it or not. Right. I can't believe there wasn't even like any attempt on that side, just to be like, fine, I'll do it. I'll go, but I might be missing something.
I think it was his ego that would not allow him. I mean, I can appreciate that he was going through um some medical stuff, and that probably obviously wasn't, it was something new to him and he had to figure that out, and I get that. But I think, me personally, it was his ego. If he admitted, if he like went along with what Jen was saying and he got the help, then that would be admitting that he was wrong, this whole time. And I think that's just, in my opinion, that was too big of an ask for him, and he was selfish.
Yeah, I don't know. At that point, I don't know that he really cared whether he was right or wrong at that point. But it was he in his mind, he tried counseling because we did go that one time. So he says, and because the pastor at the little church came over a few times, during that season, and he did talk. Um, you know, some friends from church, I think I mentioned a very sweet couple that really wanted to help us. He opened up one big time with that couple. And so I think in his mind, he did try. He did try to get help. That was his attempt at help. I think I think he misjudges what getting like professional help is and what it can do and what they can do, their knowledge and things like that. But, there's the whole other stigma too, not just on an ego level of, hey, I don't want the stigma of people knowing that I'm going to a psychologist or counselor or whatever. Um, it in his mind, these problems were spiritual pretty much all of the time. Uh, he would admit that there were uh, a small amount of people who actually struggled with legitimate chemical imbalances in the brain that caused some mental health issues that could be adjusted and helped with therapy and medication. But that was a very small amount of people. And, his opinion is that that's just way too prevalent in our country. And like everybody goes to that for almost like a band-aid, like a quick fix. So he didn't really have respect for that uh, at all. So I think it was more that he just didn't have respect for that process. So he didn't pursue it at all. I told him many times during those conversations, like, I recognize that you're in a bad spot and you need somebody to probably help you through this. Talk to this person, talk to that person, talk to this person in the family. Like, they want to help you. They care about you. They really do want to see you come out of this and everything to kind of get repaired. And he would not do that. He didn't want to talk to anybody. So
other than potentially you, but with talking with you, his spouse, he can essentially just like bulldoze you and dismiss anything you say or anything like that. Like, yeah, I just can't get, and maybe it's just I'm thinking of things and like, because there's more to this story and there's his frame of mind like currently versus his frame of mind. I'm getting things in my head. I'm getting things probably mixed up because I'm assuming that his frame of mind then is sort of his frame of mind now. And my whole rebuttal to not getting help, or even if he says, okay, well, even if I agreed that, chemical like medications and things with psychiatrists and stuff, yeah, that's a band-aid or whatever. And it is a spiritual problem. But even in my own experiences with some of the stupid choices I've made in life, God's got a hold of my heart. But God getting a hold of your heart is, in my opinion, is step one. Repenting of your sin, step two. But that's where most people stop. They're like, that's where they stop. Like, I'm good with Jesus, so that's all. I'm just good. Whereas, they don't want to go through the hard steps of reconciliation and addressing some of the issues. They just say, oh, I'm good with God, he's forgiven me, so we're going to stop there. I just can't get past the fact that somebody as spiritually attuned as he is and was, that something like a funk that he is in, even if there is some kind of like chemical imbalance with the brain, or he was just in a funk, I don't see how, with his training and biblical knowledge, the fix is really easy. It's just like, just give it to God and let him do his work in your life. You may not like the process. Like, you may not like the fact that you got to go apologize to people and you got to go X, Y, and Z. But if you really truly are a believer in Jesus and you follow his teachings and all that stuff, get right with him. But he's also going to, in order to get complete healing, you have to finish the process. You have to go through that reconciliation, and you have to go through facing all the things that you need to face. And that's when really true healing comes into play. So,
Yeah.
I just, that's, like I said, that's my rebuttal to that. But again, this is speaking from, I know his mindset now. I'm not sure if that is the same mindset then that he had. So to be fair, I may be mixing up like his state of mind, the time frames and things like that.
I mean, then it was more of a very, I don't know how to say it, like a hurt state of mind. Like, life he was just beat down. He was beat up. He was in bad shape at that point. Yeah, I mean, there was some ego involved. And I think that's been the most consistent thread through this whole thing, is that ego and that reputation, the image. And it's not just image, like how other people see you, because I think a person, especially somebody that's very smart, can separate the two things. Like, this is my reputation, this is how people see me. And if that's destroyed, I can give that up. But like, ego is something different. It's almost like how you view yourself and the respect that you give to yourself. I think that there is a little bit of a difference there. And that ego is the thing that we kind of fought with the whole time. I remember at one point before I left Wisconsin telling him, listen, there are more important things that we are dealing with as a family than your ego. So, like, you really need to put that aside so that we can actually get better and make some kind of progress. Now, I will say, to your point, I think that he needed a lot more than just spiritual help. At that point, he needed professional help. He had needed professional help for a long time, and that the fact that he didn't get that was a huge piece of what led him and led us to this point. So his continuance of, no, I'm not going to get professional help, that was also a continuing theme throughout the rest of the story. So, to your point there, that's actually a good lead in, because that crossroads that I found myself in at the end of the summer, I don't know, to me it was pretty A plus B equals C. Like, I have to enroll the kids in school somewhere, and if that's here, I need to get a job. I cannot live in my parents' house forever. I did not want that. I knew at some point it would be a strain on the relationship if I overextended that. I mean, I added to their 4-person home, 6 more people, my 5 kids plus me. So I knew that I was going to have to enroll the kids in school, get a job. And then I thought, well, if I do that, that means I'm not going back to Wisconsin for a very long time, at least that whole school year. So what was going to happen then with my marriage? And I still, at this point, did not even want to consider divorce. But I knew, if you don't go back, if something doesn't happen in this situation, there's only you're at a crossroads. There's only 2 ways that you could possibly go. You go on one road and you're going to end up getting divorced. You go down another road and you're going to work on it. Like, you're going to try to save it. And there's really only two ways that it could go. So I decided that I wasn't done trying to fight for the marriage. So I decided, and I talked with our parents about it. I'm like, I can't go back to Wisconsin. I still just like, I felt a lot stronger. You know, my head had a chance to clear. I had some, you know, I was able to bounce some things off of people and get some kind of talk therapy going on. But I just still could not go back to Wisconsin, go back into that house, and I just couldn't do it. So I said, what if I brought him to Pennsylvania? Let's bring him here. Maybe he can find the clearing. Like, maybe his head then can clear too. You know, I told him, like, listen, I have found some light and some peace and all the things, like all the good things. And let me bring you into this situation rather than me going back into a dark situation and being drugged back down. So maybe you can find the same kind of peace and like light, like of the light of day that I have found. So I talked him into that. I brought him to Pennsylvania on Labor Day weekend. I had gotten a job just like a few weeks before that. The kids started school, so everything just kind of progressed. When I brought him to Pennsylvania, he was in extremely bad shape. Physically, you know, mentally, spiritually, health, all the things. He was just in really bad shape. So, and I had to go to work. I mean, I couldn't sit in the house with him trying to like nurse him back to health. So, and my job was an hour away too. So on top of working full time, I commuted, you know, an hour each way. So his full focus was to get back on his feet physically with his health so that he can then get a job so that we could get out of my parents' house. I told him that, you know, I have a counselor and I'll set it up so that we're just including you now. So we can keep going to this counselor. This is going to be part of this. And this was a big mistake on my end. 'Cause he said, all right, well, I don't want to go see a counselor. I mean, he would have done it if I'd have really dug my heels in, he would have done it. But he said, listen, all these counselors do is with a couple is to get them to talk. You know, they talk to try to draw out the information that they need to then help you put things back together. So their whole job is to get you to talk and communicating. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's part of it. Yeah. So he said, you know, we can cut out that third party if we just decide that we're going to talk to each other. And if nobody has to draw it out of us and we just talk and work things out and there's no walls, then, I mean, why do we need the counselor? I was just like, well, I guess that makes sense.
Whatever. That's a bunch of baloney, by the way. That's just, I don't know if his intention was to keep you isolated, but that's what that does. It just keeps you isolated. And if you don't share your problems with people and you're just the ones trying to talk each other out of the problem that you got yourselves into, like, that's not going to work. So I don't know if his intentions were to isolate you.
Yeah, where's the accountability? Like that's the other thing that a counselor or therapist or whatever, they will like call out and hold you accountable. They'll give you homework, you know. They'll do all of that stuff. And I speak from experience. I went through a short stint a couple years ago, you know, trying to transition from working, you know, on my feet all day long, going out on shows and stuff, to now just working from home, which it was just me and my dogs, being lonely. Like, so I had to deal with that. And I'm like, well, let me just try this one organization. Just why not? You know, health insurance covers it. Sure. So, and I talked to this lady and, you know, and it was a casual conversation and told her, hey, this is what's going on. She asked some questions that drew some stuff out. And she's like, hey, for our next session, here's some homework. I want you to write a list of X, Y, and Z and do. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then like when I came to the session and she's like, did you do your homework? I'm like, work kind of got in the way. And she's like, bro. And she kind of held my feet to the fire. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We'll do it, you know, but there's accountability there. And I think that's the key component that was missing in that. And I don't know if that was the initial intention, but I already start like, this is the part, and I know this story, but I just had this realization, like, this is the part that starts the whole, like, I don't know what the proper term is. If it's not victim positioning, but it's something else where it's like you're making an excuse not to go to a therapist so that you can just talk to each other, but you're in full control of the conversation and you don't have a third party controlling the conversation. And I had a light bulb moment when you said that, like, oh, okay, maybe this is where kind of things really just, maybe this was the fuse, is this conversation. I may be wrong. I'm just I'm psychoanalyzing this whole thing.
It was definitely, like I said, it was a bad call on my end. I should have stuck my heels in the ground and said, no, we're going to do this with a third party. But I guess at that point I was just happy that we were going to at least talk to each other, because up until this point he refused. We were not allowed to talk about it. You know, I mean, the whole thing happened with the church and the business and the depressions and the stuff with our daughter, and all these hard, difficult things happened that any one of these situations would have sent somebody to see a therapist. But we had all of these at the same time crashing down, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it. Every time I brought it up, he was like, what do you want to talk about? It happened. You know, we're through it. We're away from it now. Like, we're fine. So at this point, I'm just happy that he's agreeing to talk. So, but to Steph's point, I don't think this was I don't really think most of this process was intentional, that like he was intentionally doing this, but this was being done. The isolation was continuing. It was just picking up. And I think what he was doing, whether he recognized it or not, whether it was purposeful or not, was when I left Pennsylvania, I broke the bubble that that had been created around us, that was isolating us from people and insulating us from, you know, whoever's opinion might have been there had they known what was going on. I broke that bubble when I left. I mean, I let it fly. I was careful. I really was careful about what I said and who I talked to. But when it came to close family members, I told the truth. And so, and I did try to be extremely fair in all of my retelling of the story. Like, you know, you do something drastic, like pack your kids up and leave for longer than a vacation. People notice that. And I didn't want people to draw their own conclusions that could have been worse than what was actually the truth. So, and I didn't want people to hate him and, again, draw conclusions that weren't right and end up turning him into this monster that he wasn't. So I did tell the truth, and I tried to do it very fairly. And I made sure that I included all of the stuff that happened to him that probably got him into this position to begin with. And I tried to have compassion when I told the story. So, but in leaving, I did break that bubble, and other people then were into our space and they knew what was going on. And in his mind, that was like destruction. You know, I broke trust. I gossiped. I slandered. I destroyed his image and other people's minds. So that destroyed his relationships with those people in his mind. And so I think this, no, we can just talk things out amongst ourselves was the start of him trying to reform that bubble. And that makes sense because of what continued to happen. So he held true to that, like, promise that we're going to talk. So it went from not talking about it at all to very quickly and intensely talking about it all the time. We were always in a deep conversation, hours long, working on the problems, which I guess was acceptable for a time period. But it was difficult because, like, on the other side of that, the family, our family that kind of caught us, went from, me and the kids being around and part of the family down, in the living room, having dinner and all the things that family time, to now he's in the picture and we don't ever see Jenn anymore. They're always up in their room. They're secluding themselves or they're out wherever. And so that was difficult. That did start to create some tension. And there was a lot of love bombing that happened in that time period. So at the same time this is happening is he got a gym membership, started, working on his health, created and held to a very strict healthy food diet. So he made all of his meals. It depended on what we were having for dinner that night. He might just eat a little bit of it to, like, not be rude. But anyway, for the most part, he was in charge of his health. So he did great on that. I mean, that's one great thing about his personality is, like, when he's kind of like a bulldog, when he grabs a bone, like, he does not let go of it. And so he took his health situation from near death, I think, very weak, very, very in a lot of trouble, having to use insulin to manage diabetes, all the things, to, like, really healthy, strong again, back in his right mind. Just the depression had lifted. He was in a really good spot inside of a month. That took a month for him to regain his health back. I mean, he was very dedicated. I think he spent 3 to 5 hours at the gym a day.
Yeah, I was gonna say that probably is multiple hours at a gym. But if you're not, that's all you have to do during the day while you're at work. Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah, right. And him and our stepmother didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I'm pretty sure she just tolerated his presence because I requested it, and she, for her part of it, wanted to be as helpful as she could be. So, but he knew that he was not her favorite person. So I think he tried to stay out of the house as much as he could to kind of not be with her. But obviously he can't stay gone for 8-10 hours a day when you're in a new place and you don't have any friends. So that brought up the next kind of phase of this, where I would come home. He started getting better, and I would come home from work and, hey, how was your day? What happened? And he would start telling me things like, yeah, this and this and this at the gym. And then I came home and I had, your stepmom and I sat around the table for a little bit, chit chatting. And, she just started in on me and started, like, she's very not, like, attacking me directly, but very innuendo, like, under the radar attacking me. And I was just like, I mean, I know that they're not, like, best friends, but that just didn't seem like, out of character. And especially because when we first got to Pennsylvania, when it was just me and the kids, our dad and I kind of sat everybody down, all of my kids and our two youngest sisters, who were in their early 20s at the time, sat everybody down and said, look, this is going to feel like a visit, and we're all excited that we're together. And it's going to feel like a visit for about the first maybe 10 days to 2 weeks. And then, like, real life is going to set back in, and that is going to wear off. And we're doubling the size of this house right now, more than doubling it. Y'all aren't used to it. We're not used to you. You're not used to us. So, things are going to get old probably fast, and there's bound to be some kind of tension in the house. So let's just decide now. Let's make a commitment to each other now that when that happens, we don't ignore it. We just come back to this kitchen table and we talk about it. And we say, hey, I'm seeing this. I'm kind of getting this vibe from you. Am I reading the situation correctly? And we commit to each other to be honest that, like, yeah, actually, when you said X, Y, and Z, or when you did X, Y, and Z, or when you did not do X, Y, and Z, like, it really bothered me, or it just annoyed me, or whatever. Like, let's work through these little differences, because we're going to probably have to be together for a little bit longer than our comfort level is going to tolerate. So I told him that. I said, we made this promise, and if things are getting difficult, well, we just need to talk about it. Let's just bring Dad and her to the table and let's talk about it. And he's like, oh, no. That is not necessary. I can handle it. It's fine. And I'm like, well, you mean like you're going to talk to her one-on-one about it? No. I'll just keep taking it, and it'll be fine. I can handle it. I'm strong now again. I can handle it. It's just like, all right. Okay.
Steph just kind of in her mouth a little bit. I see you shaking her head.
I need to like woosah. I'm just like, what are you doing? You're just further isolating yourselves. Like, you agreed to this. You need to sit down and be like, hey, X, Y, and Z is hurt my feelings.
But he didn't agree to it.
Right. He was not part of that talk.
Okay.
I suppose,
That's so dumb. You can't sit down like a man and say, hey, this is bothering me. You can only tell your wife and no one else. That just sounds like you're complaining and you don't want an actual solution to me. But I tend to get a little sassy, so.
Well, in his defense, which I'll only offer him a little bit of defense in this, because there had been, it seemed like every time we visited over the years, there was some kind of butting heads, usually over a board game or something dumb, because they're both kind of type A, personalities, and they both kind of have to, be in charge. And so that they butted heads in the past. And, he kind of had the opinion of, she does not like me. And I will not back down when I know I'm right. So I need to avoid that situation. And so I was just like, fine, like, if you don't want to talk about it, then I guess you're not going to let it bother you. I took that as that's what that needed to equal, because if you're not going to fix it, then I guess don't complain about it. Yeah. So it was just, looking back, I know that was definitely, that's another point where I should have put my foot down and dug my heels in. That's another point. So we didn't, we didn't deal with it with the family. So, I'm just like, okay, fine. I go to work the next day, do it all over again. He didn't tell me these things every single day when I came home from work. But every single day when I came home from work, it was like we had to have a download, and then, turn into a huge conversation that, we're being called down for dinner. And it's like, I get home from work, pick up the daughter, get home from work, go straight to the room, come down for dinner, go straight back to the room, and I'm not seen again until putting the kids to bed or uh, the next day sometime. So I could see why the family got pretty annoyed. Um, but and I mean, our parents kind of voiced some of that concern here and there. His reasons were like, well, we're very busy working on our marriage and trying to put things back together. I, I think it's reasonable that we are alone a lot. We have a lot to work on. You know, in my mind, that seemed reasonable. And, for the first time, he's talking to me about things. Not only that, but he's like accepting responsibility for the things that were wrong. Not only that, but he was identifying the ways that he had been hurting me for all those years. He was identifying those on his own. I was not telling him this. I mean, I think I told him multiple times throughout the summer when he wasn't listening, but he was now coming up with these things on his own and telling me, when I did X, Y, and Z, and when I used to talk to you like this, I bet that made you feel little, and I bet that made you feel like you were insignificant, and you probably felt like you were, less than me, and all these things. He was telling me these things, and I'm just like, yeah, 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 exactly. Just what you said. Yes. So, not only was he finally talking, why we were able to actually allowed to finally talk about all the problems, but he was for the first time acknowledging all of the hurt that he had been doing for years and everything that I had been feeling. So I felt like for the first time, you're seeing me for the first time. And so I let this go on. And then also with our kids, he was becoming very engaged with the kids. I was used to him working 80 plus hours a week on the business, being home. When he was home, he was in front of the TV just trying to decompress. We did not really have dinner together as a family at the table. That was difficult on multiple levels. We had young kids that didn't want to sit and whatever. But there wasn't a lot of, I don't want to say that he was like never a parent, but, just when you work that much there and then you need that time to decompress, the only time that you have with your kids, you're good. You don't have a lot of time to parent,
Yeah, so it sounds to me like the reason why I made a face was it almost sounds to me like he did know all of these things all along, and he did know how to be there as a father to the kids and whatnot. And it sounds like to me, he actively chose not to do that before because he had more control of the situation. And the reason why I say that is what like what was the main difference between before and now, because you guys didn't get that outside professional help, right? So like it seems to me that all of a sudden him seeing you, I think that he knew what he was doing the whole time and just chose to do that. But that's just me. That's just what it sounds like from the way that I'm hearing it. I don't know that that's true, but if he was all of a sudden able to change himself and change how he's talking to you and really see you, then I think he was in control of that the whole time.
Right, and I'll just interject from my perspective on that. Like, if my wife comes to me and says, you're doing this to me, and let's just say for the sake of the conversation, I legit didn't know I was doing this. Like, oh, I didn't know, like, the way I treat you like this made you feel. I really didn't know that. Okay, so now I know, like, a specific behavior I do makes my wife feel this way. I wouldn't be able to let's just fast forward. Let's just say we were going through marital strife, whatever, and we're now talking about issues. Because I never knew that what I did affected her that way, I wouldn't know to say, yeah, when I, leave the toilet seat up, I didn't know that puts you into a deep, dark depression.
Yeah.
And it makes you so mad. Right. But if I know in the back of my head that leaving the toilet seat up all this whole time, now going back to the past, like if I know that leaving the toilet seat up makes her really, really mad, and I know this and I do it anyway because it's my house. Like I paid for it. I'm not going to leave the toilet seat up if I want to. Screw what she thinks. But then we have issues later on down the road. I know to go, hey, listen, babe, I know we're working on our stuff. I'm sorry I always left the toilet seat up. I know that made you so mad, and I kept doing it anyway. And I know I know that hurt you and that made you mad. And, I'm sorry. And like, you get where I'm going with this. Like
it's preloaded in his brain.
So when you say that he's all of a sudden, yeah, it's like preloaded info in his brain. It's like, oh, now that we're talking about this stuff now, let me just take the opportunity to go, okay, I did this. To me, that's saying, I know I did this. I know that this made you feel this way, but I did it anyway because, for whatever reason, I was able to do it anyway. So I'm just going to call that out there and say I'm in line with Steph on that one to say, I probably knew all along all the stuff he was doing to you. And the fact that you never even addressed it or brought it up saying, these were issues or anything, like you never addressed those things. He just was just like, boom, 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 boom. And you're like, yes, finally you see me. And I didn't even have to tell you.
It was a combination of that, what you just said. So yeah, I mean, there had been plenty of times I had brought it up to him, you hurt me these kind of ways. But like I said yesterday, I think I explained that he had a very skillful way of turning all of that around to make me even believe that it was my fault. And, I told him at least 2 times in our marriage very seriously, like, look, I do not feel like I'm your friend. I feel like you are I don't know, like a boss that I'm actually afraid of you, I have more fear for you. I don't feel safe emotionally with you. So, I had raised these concerns through the years. It's not like I never told him and he was just blindsided by all these problems. But I don't know, I can't say what he was thinking, but I do know that the business was a huge thing, and it was a big excuse, really. It did take a ton of his time, and I'm not going to blame him for all of that, but I always felt like the business was really the wife and I was just like the maid. He was more committed to the business and how the business was doing and how the business was feeling and how the business, like he read tons of books about business and how to be a good business owner. And he was a good businessman. But I remember saying to him one time during, we had the winters off. Instead of pouring all of your energy into like your workshop or these business books that you've read 100 of, maybe we can work on our marriage. Maybe we can work on our family. Maybe we can read a book about marriage together or do a seminar or I don't know, just something that's going to focus on us and our family and kind of filling in those needs. And that was just never a great idea. That was never good enough. So I remember saying at one point, in the darkness, before I left Wisconsin, you've read all of these business books, but how many books have you picked up about how to be a good husband or a father? And you've ignored everybody that has raised the subject, because there was a pastor. He was a children's pastor that we were close with, him and his wife, at our home church that we were at, and he raised the question very like boldly, like kind of, if you constantly have to spend this much time at work, when do you have time to be a father? And he wasn't bashing him. He was just sincerely asking, like, when do you have time when do you have time to be a dad to your kids? When do you have time to take them fishing or camping or whatever? And his response, and this was always his mentality, this was the way he talked about it to me, is I the way I love my family is by providing for them. The way I provide is this business, and it requires all of this of me. And so by me spending the time and taking care of the business, I am loving my family and I am taking care of them. Um, and you know what? That's fine. But a family, a wife, kids, they need more than a provider. They really do. We need I'm sorry. We just need you men to be more than workhorses. We just do. Steph looked like she wanted to say something there. So,
Yeah, absolutely. There are way too many fathers out there that take the role of provider and they equate that to making money and that's it. But God doesn't call you to be a provider of money. He calls you to be a provider for your family. And that's in every aspect. I'm pretty sure God wants the men to lead in not only finances, but in the spiritual way, making sure your kids are emotionally fed, making sure that they know that you're a safe space, making sure that they know that you love them and that you're devoted to them by spending time with them and doing activities with them and showing up for your family. I think it's a giant cop out to say, well, I need to be a provider, so I need to be a good businessman so I can be a good provider. Sorry, you're sadly mistaken. That is not what being a godly provider is to your family.
So there are, in certain circles of culture, the old school traditional boys, right? The work from sun up to sundown, hard work ethic, work that, provide for the family, make sure that they have a roof over their head, make sure they have food on their plates, all that stuff. It's the woman go make me a sandwich
it's the
culture,
same people.
you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's the same culture of people where like the wife is the homemaker, she makes the food, she takes care of the home, which children were included in that home, and the husband is the provider to make sure that she has the resources to properly take care of the home. So there's a whole circle of old school mentality thinking that, growing up as conservative Baptist, stuff like that is kind of in line with that frame of thinking. So when you're raised, like, I'm speaking for back then, to culture has changed today. Like, you're lucky to have a father even in the home these days, so, but back then, in the way we grew up and the way that I think, he grew up was in, what he learned at Bible college, which is, I think, was a more conservative way, conservative college. I don't know. I've never been there, but he was taking that whole mantle of I am the provider, which is not, I'm going to rebuttal a little bit. I don't think that's necessarily the wrong approach but with that said, I do think like there's opportunity, like you have time, you're not working 24/7. You're pulling 12-hour days and sometimes maybe 15-hour days, but there's time when you get home. Okay. Spend a half hour, spend an hour, just ask your kids how your day was. Even if they're like on their way to bed, just be present. And maybe there's not time during the work week to really engage your kids, but you can find the time. You can find time. Yeah. It's called priorities. So yes, I understand the old school conservative mentality of men being the provider and their sole responsibility is to make sure that the wife has the resources she needs to provide for the home. But with that said, that's not an excuse, which is, I think, where this is coming, where I'm kind of bringing it home is I'm not agreeing with him saying like, I agree with this statement of, I'm the provider. This is my focus has to be on this. So yeah, I provide for you guys. I think I think in this case, that was a cop out to go, well, no, you're just not taking the extra effort to spend time with your kids. You have the winters off. You're not reading books 24/7. So instead of taking you could still, and you lived in a subdivision where there was a lake that freezes in Wisconsin. So you could still teach your kids how to fish. You just,
yeah, it was a big deal there too.
You can go, ice fishing is huge in Wisconsin. And you can take your kids snowmobiling. Like if that's the only time you really have to invest in your children is the wintertime because the concrete season is just chaos. Okay. Like I can understand. I mean, maybe I'll give you a pass on that. But the idea of men working, sun up to sundown. Well, when the sun goes down, you still need to eat food. Your kids are still awake. Like you could still engage in them. Your wife is still there. Like, so I think that's just a big cop out. But to Steph's point, like my rebuttal was Steph kind of painted this like picture of like, in my opinions, it's not a complete fantasy, especially in today's culture, because men are not, a lot of men in today's culture are just a lot of fluff, but it's just like, I think it's what she's thinking is what every woman like imagines. Like, I want a husband that's this, like the perfect, and it's very rare to find. I'm not like that. Like, I'm not the perfect husband. I work a lot and there are times where I'm just like, I'm just not that perfect.
Yeah.
Picture frame of what
and
you guys were, what you just
perfect.
What you guys but no, you said I don't need to be perfect, but the way you just explained it seems like I gotta be perfect. I'm not a real husband.
You just need to be trying, and you don't even need to achieve perfection, but show that you're trying.
Let there be some balance. I think our situation was just that it was a huge imbalance, and I am for traditional ways. I am a traditional person and I'm very comfortable in that arena. But Steph's right. Like it needs to be more than just you're a provider and a workhorse. There's other things that go along with providing that need to happen and that are kind of required of a father and a husband. When you become a father, when you become a husband, you kind of need to know that, hey, this is what I'm signing up for. And yet, these need to be my priorities. And to John's point, it would have been perfectly acceptable if the concrete season would be crazy and he's exhausted at the end of the day. I completely get it. You just want to collapse in the couch and kind of put your brain on vegetate mode, he did a lot of like brain work in the business. So I get it. He was exhausted. But yes, during the winters when we didn't have to be running full speed, use that time to play catch up. That's it. Just play catch up, and make the time that you have, with your kids and with your family worth the wait. So, we have to wait for 8 months to get filled. At least we know there's a light at the end of the tunnel and the winter's coming and we can have fun this winter with dad, and not fantasy way. Like we're not going to, we're not going to go sledding every day, but
winter's coming, Jon Snow.
It's Jon Snow.
Yeah. Tell me you don't know what that reference is.
No, she does not watch that. She does not watch that. There's way too
do you
much
know me?
She's a
showing in that.
Traditionalist. She's a traditionalist.
Down with the traditionalist.
Yes.
Okay.
That's so funny.
That's like anybody in the comments that's watching this knows exactly what I was referencing. And just to prove your point, like if you're watching this, put in the comments what show
somebody already did Game of Thrones. Is that right? Is that Game of Thrones? No? Oh, it is?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was Game of Thrones.
We'll see.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's so funny.
Okay, so bringing this back, reeling this back in. So you guys were, sounds like, up, you're at our parents' house, you're upstairs. When you're home, get home from work, it's like you're upstairs, you're talking. You're downstairs for dinner for 20 minutes and you're back upstairs. He's admitting all this stuff, which is kind of where the conversation kind of bunny trailed with that. So he's admitting all this stuff, but then like the relationship seems to start getting strained between our stepmother and him, and there just seems to be something. I'm sensing something is built. Like I know something's building. But like, yeah, so just continue on with that. Like, okay, where's everybody at
So
that point?
he was building into the kids as well. So just making sure that he was just being, he was engaging with them and being like the dad that I don't think they realized that they were missing all these years. But and we had a chore system for the kids. We didn't want to be this burden on our parents and younger sisters, just like leave a mess everywhere we go. So like we had a chore system for the kids to try to do our part. He was very much on top of that with them, but he was really putting a lot into our family at that point. Even got our older daughter, who didn't have a good relationship with him up until this point at all, got her believing that, oh my goodness, like this is the dad that I have been missing all of this time. Like I never even realized that this was possible. This is awesome. And she really let her guard down and started really embracing that relationship with him that she never had before. He was taking her out driving and helping her, like teaching her how to drive, just having good conversations with her, like, hey, how was your day? How was school? Let's work through that. Like, let's talk about that. Things like that, helping her with schoolwork and just, the kind of stuff that a dad should do. So he had us all very convinced that he was on the upswing. His health was good. He was strong. He was back in his right mind. He was pouring into the family the things that had always been missing. So we were, for a time, just like eating this up. It was like, he was just dumping dump truck loads into the vast hole that had been created all of those years. So we were, it went on like this for maybe a month. But during this time, my dad took me out for breakfast one day and was just like, okay, well, you guys seem to be doing better. Like he seems to be doing a lot better. And so, like, is he thinking about going and looking for a job? Here's a couple of options. Like I have a buddy, he has this work available and maybe he can jump into that just to kind of get something while he's looking for something more permanent. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, I'll talk to him about it. Talk to him about that, and just nothing happened. He didn't move on any of that. And so then a little bit more time passed, and our stepmom took me out for coffee. It was like, okay, this is kind of getting old. He's good now. You guys are good. Like, when is he gonna get a job? I was just like, I mean, I don't know what to say, because every time I bring the subject up, it's just like this, I don't know, this doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, what happened to providing for the family? Like, where'd that mentality go?
So then at that point he tells me, well, actually, I am planning on getting a job for sure. But I gave myself to like the new year. This was maybe October, November-ish by this point. So he took a whole month to get better, and everybody gave him grace and during that month. And then the parents started with, okay, where's the job now? So I'm going to say this is like October, November-ish. And he was like, well, I gave myself to the new year to get fully back on my feet mentally with my health and with like the relationship with you guys and everything. So I'm going to stick to that, and I'm going to allow myself that the remaining of that time before I go out and try to find a job to take my focus away from what we're doing here. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess that's reasonable because we did have a lot of work, to kind of to fix things with our family. So at first that was acceptable to me. And but the relationship with the parents was strained enough by that time that I did not want to go back to them and tell them that this was the deal. I knew that they would not accept that, especially our stepmother would not accept that. The tension was just, and I tend to be more of a people pleaser. And man, if there's tension, and at that point in time too, I was really adverse to conflict. So I just avoided it at all costs and tried to change myself, because my theory was always like, well, I can change myself. Yeah, I might not be able to change other people, but I can make the situation better by just changing myself. So I'll make sure that I'm going out of my way, to try to ease this tension. That didn't work, of course, because it really wasn't my fault. So anyway, there was tension growing, building. He kept refusing to get a job. Meanwhile, he's starting to like text me at work, like not a little bit, a lot, to where I'm like, dude, yeah, I work in accounting, I'm in people's books, like I have to have my brain. I don't want to screw up, and have it be bad for this business. Like, so I told him, like, look, I could take a text here or there throughout the day, like, hey, how's it going? Text me at lunchtime, whatever. But like, I can't be in a conversation with you during work. And and I even said, like, you know how that is. Like, you want you know how it is to be doing mental work. You need your brain. So, he acted like he was like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's good, let's talk at home. But then would just continue to text me. So I'm like, okay, well, you say that, like, it's almost like you say that you respect me, but you don't actually. So that kind of stuff started happening more frequently. And then the texts became just a lot more. It very quickly went from like, a few texts at bad times to like, you're texting me books. I can't even read all of this. I can't even read it all. And so let's just like, can you just wait till I get home and we'll talk? So that did not stop. And he would text me all day. Then he started getting irritated when I wasn't answering him, or when he would say something later on and I didn't know what he was talking about because I didn't even have time to catch up on the book that he sent me during the day. So I'm like, dude, this is, I can't keep up with you at this point in time. But he had there was enough of the continuation of working on our relationship and our marriage and our family. And there was enough good things happening that I kind of wrote this off as just like, well, we have a lot of catch up to do, so it's coming. Like, we opened the floodgates and now it's coming, and I got to just ride it out until it evens back out, So come now Thanksgiving, you guys, John and you brought your family to Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving. And I remember, Steph, you were there with the boys, and that was a whole thing. It was like the first time in years that we had the entire family around one table for a holiday. So that was a big deal. But there was just a lot of tension. A lot of masks were put on that day to have that. And I just remember John you, Amanda, and me and him sitting down and to catch up, and us just kind of primarily him like saying all this bad stuff, like, hey, here's the story, this is what happened to us, but we've been doing all of this work and we're good now, and they just don't understand, and they're not getting it, and they're being selfish, and they're this and they're that, and you know stepmom is undermining us, and it's like she's actively wanting to see us fail. And I remember he was telling you guys these kinds of things, and completely convincing, right? Because you guys were both like, holy cow, what can we do to help? And you know I remember you guys going back, and then I think very short, I don't even know if you were home yet, before texting or calling us and saying, hey, if you guys want to consider moving to Ohio, like, we'll take you in. Because that's how convinced you were that things were bad because of the
Yeah.
parents.
I don't. I can't remember if it was right away, but I know that him and I started texting back and forth, and he continued on how bad it was there, and I sympathized and I could relate a little bit. And I was like, well, because I knew our stepmother, and I'm like, yeah, I see that personality in her all the time, and just with some stuff that's happened in the past with other siblings, and and her, it made sense what he was saying, and what was wrong, like, it made sense in my brain, because I'm like, well, I saw similar patterns like that in the other siblings, and so yeah, maybe this is legit. And yeah, he was very, everything was very convincing. And so yeah, I was like, I think from that day on, we were just texting each other back and forth. And I don't know, I can't remember when I made the offer to come live with us. I know I made the offer a couple different times, like if he needed to get away for a few days, he can come chill with us for if things are getting too hot and he just needed to come and chill for a couple of days. But I don't recall. I'm trying to recall when I actually made the offer to just bring everybody here, because I recall being in Louisville when I got the text from him, or the call. It was a call from him saying, hey, things are really bad. Can I take you up on and come with you, come stay with you guys for a little bit, just till things cool off? And then I remember calling you and being like, is this legit? Like, what's going on? And then you're like, yeah, it's legit. Things are bad, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of, I don't want to start down that road, because that gets into like when you guys came to live with me. And I know there's more to this story about some dinners and your job and the injection into your job and all that
and you're right about that timeline. It wasn't immediately after Thanksgiving, so I forgot that after Thanksgiving you guys went back, and then we maintained communication, and he and you were texting a lot, like you guys just reconnected, and so you kept up on the situation at that point. And I do remember the time that he said, hey, like, I need to skedaddle for a little bit, can I just have a break? Actually, that was when things started going bad for us personally. There was Now, after Thanksgiving, so this is gonna be early December, there was this big okay, no. There was a mild snowstorm, but in Pennsylvania, they weren't used to that, so it was a big deal. So, anyway, like, it was a whole deal, and I guess that story doesn't really matter, but it's just a marker in my brain, because I was stranded and he came to get me, and the whole time he's on his way there to get me, we're on the phone and we're talking, because it took him a long time to get to me because of the road conditions. And at that point, at the end of that whole ordeal, he was kind of like done spilling and accepting responsibility for all these things. It kind of came to a point where it's like, okay, it's all out now. And then it turned on me, and it was almost like, now it's your turn. What do you have to say to me? Like, now let's role reverse, and you tell me all the ways that you hurt me in the past. And I was just like, really trying to think about it. And I'm like, I guess because I didn't communicate all this effectively, that I allowed it to happen, and so it must be my fault, and I owe you an apology. And like, of course that was not convincing, because I didn't believe it at all. Like, I never thought that I was perfect in the relationship, but you know, we're talking about a different thing when we're talking about somebody hurting somebody repeatedly over and over again and not changing, and like, it gets brought up and you still don't change. I didn't do stuff like that. I was a normal, I don't know, wife who was really trying. And I don't like to, I always feel like I'm being not fair, and I don't want to paint myself better than I was. I don't know. I didn't actively hurt him. So I had a hard time with it being my turn. And I struggled with that because I was like, I mean, it takes two, and there has to be something major that I did wrong that I could bring up. And you know what? The one concrete thing that I could bring up to apologize for, that I legitimately felt bad for, was leaving him in Wisconsin, but every time I brought that up, I was like, I feel bad about that, and I am sorry. I kind of wish that I had done something different, but at the same time, I don't know what was that other choice? I don't know what the different thing would have been. And every time I started down the road, he was quick to put that out and was like, no, you've explained that. I understand why you did what you did, and I don't fault you for that at all. And I was always just like, okay, cool. So but that was really the only thing that I could get. So this started to not go well really quickly, really, really fast. As high up on the mountain as we got in our progression of making things better, it just made for a more dramatic fall. Yes.
A bigger snowball.
Yes. So now the focus was on me, and I mean, there were times that he would record conversations that we would have, and I don't remember what like reason he gave me for this, but I mean, I knew it was happening, at least some of the times. And I mean, I remember pulling at straws, like confessing things from everything, like in my childhood. Like, have you guys watched the movie The Goonies? You've seen The Goonies?
What movie?
It's an old 80s movie or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
from
sure.
our childhood. Exactly.
Who
okay.
hasn't
You know
seen
the
The
scene
Goonies?
where the bad guys catch Chunk, and they have him tied to the chair, and they're like, "You're gonna tell us everything," and they're threatening to put his hand in the blender, and then he's like, "I can't talk."
I
And when I
remember.
was in fifth grade, and then I made this noise, and I made everybody, and they're just like he's grasping
so
at
watching
straws
movies
because
tonight
he
now.
really can't answer.
Yes.
He can't give them the information that they want. Like, he doesn't even have it in his brain, so he's just like, he must be referring to
Right.
all this stuff. He's like trying to figure out all this stuff that he did wrong, and I felt like that. Like, that was me in that time. And so I'm literally confessing things from my childhood, and like, maybe I wasn't that. I always thought of myself as a good girl, a good Christian girl, and maybe I took God for granted. I mean, like, all this stuff, right? It's just like false. I don't even know what it was. Hopefully one of our guests can tell me what this was. But the roles completely, changed, and he was then now like the almost like the counselor, the one in authority that was going to help me through these struggles that I was remembering from my past.
These deep, dark pains and mistakes that you've made.
Back to like the text messages. I mean, they just came in floods at this point in time, and emails and voice messages. I mean, like every way he could communicate to me, it was happening. And it wasn't just like little spurts here and there, but it was bucket loads. And it was a lot of love bombing and a lot of like then using that love. Like, look at all the work that I just did. Like, I went through hell and back for you. And, you can't even give me X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, dude, I'm really trying here. Remember that I'm also working full time and commuting 2 hours of my day. So I'm literally gone for 10 hours of the day. We do have all of this tension now in the household with my parents and my family. My sisters were not even, I think actually only one of the younger sisters was actually living at the house at the time. The other one had been living with her boyfriend, and I think had just moved out like right before we moved in. So, but the other sister, like, she started staying at her boyfriend's or staying with friends or just being out. Like, she did not even want to deal with everything going on and all of the people in the house. So she just removed herself for, chunks of time. And so there was just a lot. And I'm just like, there's a lot going on right now. I mean, I don't know really what you want from me. And so then he started in with talking to me about my job and trying to get involved that way. And this is where, like, kind of like another phase started. He, I mean, he's an entrepreneur. He was a good businessman. He has a good sense of business. Did not go to school for that. Like, taught himself everything that he knew with books and just good old fashioned figuring it out. And I give him a lot of credit for that. But he kind of positioned himself then in the business that I was working for as like the savior of it. And mind you, there really wasn't a problem. But in his mind, he created a problem. He talked me into thinking that there was a problem here. And he had the answer to fix it. So he was like, I need a job. Your boss has this problem and I could fix it. Like, this seems to me to be a really good fit. So why don't you get me a lunch with him or something? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, maybe this, okay. And mind you, okay, my boss was, him and his wife, they were a Christian family. And I think he was crazy for hiring me. But, he had the best intentions and the best heart in doing so. When I applied to work there, right away, it was like, I'm a believer. I could tell through the website that they were believers. And so, there was just that like immediate, connection. So he knew what was going on. The 30,000 foot view. He knew what happened in Wisconsin and why I was in Pennsylvania. I'm just thinking like, dude, you're nuts for hiring somebody in my position that didn't even like officially live there. But like, I convinced him. I mean, I was convinced I was not going back. So, they did this out of the kindness of their hearts. But anyway, so, and I told him in the fall, when I was gonna bring my husband to Pennsylvania, I told my boss, this is happening. So we're going to try to work on things. And he was like, cool, good. I'm glad you guys are going to, work on things and get some help. If you need anything or like just maybe need some time off or whatever, like, we'll work with you. I'm like, cool. So, okay, fast forward now a few months, and my husband wants a job. So I set up a lunch meeting with them for them, and my boss is like, "Cool, I get to meet him. Maybe maybe I can help in some way." Well, my boss learned really quickly. I think maybe after the second lunch, this isn't. You're not wanting to a friend, like a brother in Christ, walking alongside you in this, hard time of life. You want something out of me. And my husband proposed to him what he thought my boss needed for the business, and he wanted to be the business manager. And my boss is like, that sounds like a great thing to have, but I just don't think we need that right now, and we're not in the financial position to be able to bring you on in that capacity. So this would be something that I would definitely put a pin in and come back to at a later time if and when we get to the point where we need that and have the financial funds, for that. Pretty cut and dry, clear, no, right? But he was like, if you want to keep getting together for lunch or coffee or whatever, I'm happy to keep doing that. So let's keep in touch. Well, that did not go over very well. And, so I was then tasked with, hey, your boss is not making the right decision here. His business is going to crash in a matter of, a few years if he does not bring me on to help in this imaginary problem that he has. And you need to put the pressure on him and do whatever you need to do. Talk to his wife so his wife can talk to him. He was suggesting things. I know what you're thinking right now. We could talk about that in a little bit. I swear I just read your mind. So I did. I had a coffee date with the wife, and he also instructed me, I want to know everything that is said in that meeting. It's probably just best because your brain isn't firing on all cylinders because of all this stress going on. Because that was another big topic, was why can't you remember this? How can you, that just happened? You forgot? And my, I was, so I don't know. I was losing touch with reality or something at this point. I was under a ton of stress, but, yeah. So he was kind of like, well, let's get past this forgetfulness that you're having and just record the conversation so I can hear it later. Okay, sure. I feel really bad for doing this. You know who you are out there. If you ever see this video, I'm very sorry that I did this. Very sorry. I think we sat for 2 hours and I gave it my best shot. And she was just like, I don't know. I don't even remember the conversation, honestly. But I walked away from that with still a no. And she was kind of like, well, I'll tell him everything that we talked about, and we'll talk again. But I'm pretty sure he's going to stick with no. So, then, and mind you, this all took place, I think, in a span of maybe 3 weeks. So go ahead.
The dust didn't even settle from the first meeting yet.
No.
Already. Oh my gosh.
No. This was, from the first, them being introduced to each other, the first coffee date or whatever they went on, lunch meeting, whatever, to this time when I was sitting with the boss's wife, again, it's 2-3 weeks, maybe max period of time. So the final straw was the boss and his wife invited us over to their house for a lunch. Let's get off work early on Friday and just go to lunch. You guys can come to our house. We can sit down, get to know each other as two couples better. Because I really think that they wanted to be friendly and try to be supportive in a friend kind of capacity with us. Knowing that, we come from out of state, didn't have friends. Things were they knew that things were getting rough with the family. So I just really think they wanted to help. So we went to their house, and on the way there, um he 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 basically told me, "Look, you bombed the last one. Uh, you didn't say X, Y, and Z that you were supposed to say." I don't remember, but whatever I did right before that was a big mess, and he needed me to clean up. And so he's like, "You need to do this one right." And so he pretty much scripted, and I had to write down on a notebook like the bullet points of what I was going to talk about. And this was all the goal of this meeting for him in his mind was to confront now my boss on a few points, make him see that he's the problem. He needs to repent from that and bring my husband on. Like, these problems that my boss needed to repent of, this was just proof that he needed him as a business manager. So, I mean, we bullet pointed this script on the way there. And at this point, man, I mean, I was so messed up by this point that I just, I was looking for any way that this pressure that I was constantly feeling could get released. So I am really looking up to how in the world I'm going to please my husband enough to where we can get past this section of life that we're in, because I didn't like it. It was bad. And I thought, man, we did all that work like last month and got up. What happened? Like, what just happened? And it felt like a whirlwind. And, at the same time, he's just bombarding me with all these messages and big novels to read. And I'm having to like talk through all of this stuff, and I'm having to just accept it. And I'm having to reply in a manner that is acceptable to him. And when I didn't, there would be hell to pay emotionally. Like, you this, and I'm doing all this work, and you just can't even give me a response that has your enthusiasm or your care or concern. I just feel like you're like blah. And I kept telling him, "You're just bombarding me with so much. I don't even have time to process it." That ended up becoming a big thing, like the amount of time that I needed to process something. And that was a major point of belittlement then from that point on. And I was just like, I know I got to slow down because you can't process it fast enough. Of course, he was so much better at me than that. So that all started again.
That's not really fair of him to say at all. And I remember I heard this just recently. The part of your brain, your hippocampus, actually shrinks when you're under high stress situations like that or chronic coercive control. And the hippocampus is what is in control of your emotional regulation and primarily your memory formation. So one of the main reasons neurologically why you were unable to recall certain things or you felt like your memory was just absent is because it was a direct result of the high stress situation you were in. So I just want to say that was not you. That is completely neurological. And he did that with all of his course of control.
It makes sense because I literally was unable to muster stuff. I just couldn't. It was gone.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of correlation, for the things that we talked about in episode 1. I'm purposely not bringing up like all the different terms that I know are happening in the course of control that I know are happening, because this would then be an 8-hour session here, but like,
Right. Right.
notice how in your what you just said, where you're like, you're having to give these responses, and in your brain you're like, I have to get this
Yes.
response right or I'm gonna get, there's gonna be hell to pay.
Mhm.
You know, that's like you're the feeling of always
Mhm.
walking on eggshells. You know, the gaslighting that's coming for this, as far as, you know, my pick on the gaslighting was him, you know, letting you know that like you're forgetful and you need time
And
to
making fun of
process
it.
and all
Yeah.
this. I mean, that's, and then making fun of it, you know, monitoring. The communication piece, just like the overabundance of just communication,
Mhm.
which we're going to get into, because his books that he wrote you did
Yeah.
not stop with you. They manifested and they transferred over to our dad, me, and we'll get into that, those sides of the, you know, that part of the story. But it didn't, that it didn't stop with you. But then it starts with the, obviously the big love bomb is, I think, y'all spending hours and hours and hours in a room and getting on this
Yeah.
like marriage high, and then just shooting straight down. But then there would be a little bit of love bombing and text messages, and then it comes straight. But like, I just noticed in your story, the even when you're telling it now, the flip, like it went from everything is great, this is exactly what I wanted, to healing, all that, to now like at some point there was a flip to now you are now like the victim, always stressed and all. And it's just, I mean, I can now, the under, you know, undermining your confidence that you, that was just built up because your marriage was
Mhm.
like doing good, so you had confidence in your marriage, and the psychological manipulation that happened on the way down, you know, of like undermining confidence. And now I'm trying to, what I'm trying to put my finger on, and it's like, okay, now I get that, like abuser, abusee, you're the target, but I'm just trying to figure out like in the being, put myself in the mental headspace as him, like why go after somebody's business like that? Like, what is it, just, you know, because he can't be under anybody's authority, so he has to try to inject himself in somebody else's life and be the authority in their lives? I don't know. I'm just trying to put my finger on why this whole situation with your boss even like happened.
Yeah, at the time, I could not figure this out either. I think I understand it better now, but, at the time, yeah, I was just kinda like, I guess he's just desperate for a job, and, I mean, I don't know why he can't just go get a job like every other person, but you bring up a good point of, when you're talking about, like, the big love bomb, you know, just it being, like, this one, like, yeah, there was lots of little ones, but, like, there's this big one. I remember at one point, and this was, I believe, during this time period that he's trying to get in with my boss. I mean, he and I started to argue, and, you know, that 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 was typically me bringing something up that I was trying to, like, hold him accountable for, "Hey, like, this is not right. This isn't right what we're doing. This isn't right what you are doing. You know, yes, you did all this work and that's great, but now these things are not right and we need to fix these things." And he was not accepting of that. And I remember at one point, I mean, we had been arguing and he left or was just getting ready to leave or had just come back, I don't know. Um, and I looked at him and I said, "You know, with all of this going on, it's almost like you have this master plan in your head to destroy everything that I've built over the past few months after leaving Wisconsin." You know, I built up my relationship with the family, because we were separated by states for so long and I felt like I missed out on a lot. So I built a relationship back with the family. He was destroying that. You know, we were building up our relationship with our kids in our marriage, and like finally we were getting our family in order, and he was destroying that. I had a job and I was now the provider, and he was now trying to destroy that. And I was like, it's like it's like you have a master plan to systematically undermine everything that I've built and destroy it. And he laughed it off. It was just like, he was kind of like, ha ha ha, I could see how you would think that, but I'm not that smart, Jen. I'm not that smart.
That's so telling. When you were talking about that, it made me think, was he breaking down everything that she did to teach her a lesson and basically be like, this is what will happen if you try to leave me
I
again,
think so. Kind of
kind of
like,
thing?
I, and I can't say this with confident, but it was like he viewed it as he built our life before, like Wisconsin. He did all that work and he provided that for us. And I destroyed that by leaving and then went and built my own life. And so he had to get me back into control under his submission, under his authority. In order to do that, he had to destroy my life that I built. Okay. That's how I saw that.
What? Yeah. And I think, I don't know this for sure. I'm just assuming I'm a guy and all that. So I'm assuming that like you have built for up to this point in your marriage, you are dependent on him,
Mhm.
right? You were dependent on him. Now you have built some interdependence on yourself and some independence of him because you proven that you are able to, if push came to shove, leave and get a job, and you would struggle, but you would be able to take care of the kids
For sure.
without him. You've
Yeah.
proven that, right? So as a man, I'm thinking, and I'm trying to put myself in a narcissist's shoes. Like, I'm trying to think like a narcissist. I'm trying to think like somebody who wants to control somebody. I would be like, well, I can't have her being independent. There's no way I can't have that. I have to destroy everything she has built so that she, not even to teach her a lesson, but to literally bring her back under my sphere of influence. Because if she learns, or if she figures out that she can be independent and she doesn't need me, the next time she leaves, I'm not going to get her back. So I need to do this.
Right, exactly.
And maybe injecting himself in your boss's business, and maybe that was a roundabout way of trying to dismantle what you've built. But from my position, trying to put myself in a narcissist's shoes, at least that would be my
Yeah, it would
process.
make sense because way too many times for me to count, he told me throughout the years of marriage that he could run circles around me, and if it wasn't for him, I would be like on the streets or something. I mean, I could not take care of myself, and I would just be lost without him. I mean, he told me that so often in our marriage. So, that's absolutely what he thought, and I think you're right. The fact that I was proving that to be false. I think trying to get into my workplace, and what he was trying to do, I think, was to get into a position, because I worked for him for 18 years in his business. I worked under him. I helped him. So it was hard for him to know that I was working under somebody else, some other man's leadership. I was now supporting another man in his business, and that was hard for him. There were some comments made that reinforce that, but that was hard for him. So I think in his mind, inserting himself into that business, number one, he thought that he was the answer. He thinks he's the answer to every business problem. I mean, he just does. Number two, it would have been a way for him to get back over me vocationally, because if my boss hired him on as a business manager while I was the office manager, that's a rank higher. So he would be over me, probably back to making more money than me. So Yeah, and being the one that was providing, and the one that was giving, and the one that was sustaining life and all the things. So I think you're right in that. Um, so getting back to the lunch at the boss's house. So, I am in this mindset of I just need to do whatever I need to do to make this chapter of my life close and move on, so we can move on to better days in our marriage and our family. And I was willing to put everything on the line for that. And you know what, to a certain degree, I was also like, I don't know, maybe he's right and I just need to follow along because he's smarter than me. And he must see some things that I don't see. So we go into the house and we, small talk for a little bit, whatever. Well, we sit down and just get right into it. And he started out saying this, that, and the other thing, and I don't even remember. But I went through my list and I put on a very good show. And I really showed up this time and put on a good performance. And I went through my list and I talked about all these things, and he came back, in support, and like in these accusations. Some of them were just so stupid too. But I remember leaving that meeting and they were both just like deer in the headlights. Like, what just happened? So I went back to work because, mind you, this is a lunch meeting. So I went back to work. He came back, maybe 30 minutes later, an hour later, something like that. The boss goes right into his office. And all of a sudden, I'm on my computer and I see I'm getting notifications like, you've been signed out to Dropbox. You've been signed out to Builder Trend. You've been signed out of all of these programs that I needed to do my job. And I was just like, oh my gosh, something's going on. And I remember texting my husband and was like, I think I'm getting fired. And I'm telling him I'm logged out of QuickBooks. I'm logged out of, all these programs. And he, I think what he managed to say before my boss came out was, just make sure you record everything. And I don't even remember if I did or not. I honestly don't think I even had time. So my boss comes out and he just straight up, he was like, okay, I need you to leave the premises. You are no longer employed here. And I was just like, what do you mean? What did I do? And this was like in front of other people too, in the office. At least two other people were in the office to see this. And mind you, I lived an hour away. I couldn't just, and he knew that my car was in the shop. Like, my husband dropped me off at work that day. I had no vehicle in the parking lot. He knew I lived an hour away. And I also brought into my workspace some personal items to help me do my job. So I was like, I can't just walk home. What do you want me to do? I don't live here. I have no friends here. He's like, I don't know. You're going to have to figure it out. You can go sit on the curb if you want. Like, there was a kind of like a yard space, like in between the building and the parking lot, what I mean? So it wasn't like I would be on the street, but he's like, I don't know, you can take your stuff and go sit out there and wait for him, but you cannot be in this building and I am going to watch you leave. And I'm dumbfounded. And I'm going, you're treating me like a criminal. What did I do wrong? You're not even telling me. Like, why can't you just tell me what I did wrong? And he was like, I had been advised to let you go in this manner, and I do not have to give you, there doesn't have to be a discussion. So I didn't know this, but in Pennsylvania, the employer can just fire you for anything and they don't have to give you a reason.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So one of my coworkers lived close by and she was there to witness all of this. And she was just like, it was close to the end of the workday anyway. She's like, I'll just take off a little bit early and you can come to my house. I'll bring you to my house and you can wait for your husband to pick you up there. So that's what we did. Another one of the coworkers came to her house as well because, everybody's curious now, like, what just happened? So we're all at her house and he gets there. And so we tell our version of the story and he's like, your boss is terrible and he's this and that and the other thing. And we just brought this, concern to his attention, and he went off the deep end and all these things. And it was terrible. It was just bad. And so I left, we left, never saw them again, never heard from any of them again after that. Came home, didn't even tell anybody for the next few days. He was like, let's just see who notices that you're not leaving for work. Like, okay. So this ties back the timeline to when you started, when you had been telling him that he could come visit if he needs to, get away from the heat for a little bit. He had just come back from, I think, a week at your house. Oh, gosh, that was such a deal. So when he went to your house for that week, so this is now a week prior to me getting fired. My car was dead. Okay, my van had died. So we knew we had to get a different vehicle. Do you remember this, John? He ended up buying a vehicle from a friend that you have.
The station wagon.
Yeah, the station wagon.
Yeah,
so John had a friend from church or something, I don't know. Anyway, was selling this car. So my husband bought this car for $1,000. And then he spent the week at John's house cleaning this car and fixing it up. I mean, I think he spent like 40 hours on this car. And he made it sound like, well, it was just extremely dirty. And I remember he's still at your house. I don't even know if you know this. He's still at your house. He had put a lot of time already into this car for me. And I got home from work, pulled in the driveway. I'm talking to him on the phone before I even went into the house. And I don't remember how we got from point A to point B, but he ended up really mad at me because I wasn't appreciative enough about what he was doing for me, all the work that he was putting into this car. I wasn't communicating with my tone of voice and whatever, my adoration for him, because he was putting all of this work into a gift for me. And I just lost it. I had enough. I think my pressure gauge just blew up, and I lost it. I hung up the phone with him and I stormed into the house. Mind you, I just got home from work. I stormed into the house. This is how, and our parents were thankfully the only ones home. They were at the kitchen counter, just, whatever. I storm into the house and just unleash on them. And I yelled at them for probably 45 minutes about all of the ways that they had been treating us, and the terrible mind games and the innuendos, and why don't you guys just tell us if you have a problem with us? And I don't remember most of the things that I said, but it was not good. It was bad. I've never spoken to our parents like that in my life. And yeah, that didn't go over very well. We definitely all got into it. And then afterwards, I called him back and I said, yeah, I just blew up with them, and these are all the things that we said. And I replayed the argument. And instead of him getting behind me and was like, wow, you really stuck up for me, babe, he was so angry and was like, you shouldn't have done this, and you should have held your tongue. And I just spent these last 3 months building up all of this stuff. He acted like he built all this stuff up with our parents and with the family, and he was doing all this work on the family. And you just in a moment of rage just destroyed all of that. And I was just like, okay, so if I fight your battles, I lose. If I don't fight your battles, I lose. Like, where is the how do I win in this situation? I don't get it. This is what I'm thinking.
I vaguely remember that being on the other side of it. Like, yeah, we got this station wagon. It wasn't really that dirty when we got it. But his whole thing when he was there, that's when he bought, we'll get into that. Well, at some point we'll get into some of the nuances of, you know, the time when you guys, you know, lived with us, but that's when he got the steam cleaner and just started steaming everything, engine parts and rims and just everything, just steam cleaning the whole thing. And I remember him like talking about his work, because what he did after that is he went and then he steam cleaned my engine in my car that I'm like, I didn't really ask for, but he's like, check this out, bro. And he's like steam cleaning my stuff. And I do remember my car, no joke, it was a Ford Focus. After he was done with my engine, I remember it like, it didn't run that good for a little bit. I don't know why. Maybe it's just coincidence, but it didn't run as good as it did. It sputtered a lot. And I don't know if water got into the pistons. I have no idea. But I remember him saying like, I'm doing this for Jen. Like she's, you know, she hasn't had really anything nice given to her. And I just want to make this the best thing that I can afford to like give her, because she's been through so much, and like telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, cool, bro, like you do you, brother. Like you're here to relax. You know, you need something to do with your time. So you sure go steam clean some cars. Like, great, you know? And I think we talked like one time while he was doing that, and he was asking about like, hey, well, maybe I just get some more supplies, and like this is what I do to make some extra money is I'll just, you know, like detail cars and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool, bro, like whatever, like you're just, like I said, you're here to relax, do whatever. And then you know, he leaves with
the car.
The car. And then I remember the pictures he sent of like you guys meeting in like Walmart, like thinking that's going to be this big reveal.
My
and, like,
gosh, this was like so messed up. I was
joy.
just thinking about that, because he brought it back, and he came back a little bit earlier than what he had planned, and that was to surprise me. And he had worked this out with Dad, to not tell me, so this would be a surprise. And yes, this was supposed to be some big reveal. Oh my gosh, this is just one of those pits at the bottom of my stomach situations.
Did he like present the car to you and like put a bow around the engine and then like flip the hood and be like, I cleaned this engine?
No,
for
not
you?
the engine. It was just like, but he did that for the whole car. I'm pretty sure there was a bow. John, do you remember a bow in the pictures? I bet we could find a picture of this and flash it up for the video. I bet we could do this.
I need to see this image. I do.
Bow involved, but I want to remind everybody that the timeline of this. Remember, Thanksgiving is at the end of November.
This was very fast,
and you know, from the time that we're maybe getting into next, or we might make this a part 3, is when you guys all pack up and come live with me for a while, and then the story just keeps escalating from there. It's really entertaining now to even tell it, but the timeline that happened like everything you just said, the last 30 minutes you've been talking happened in a matter of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like it's very fast.
Things really started to ramp up faster, get exponentially worse, exponentially faster. And that pattern continued throughout the rest of the story. So he comes home with this car. He meets us at church. It wasn't Walmart. It was at church. And we come out of church, and he's there in the parking lot. And like this big reveal. Yes. Look at this this awesome thing. And I'm back. He'd been gone for a week. I'm back. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry, but we had to back up just a tad, because the whole point of him going to see you guys, it wasn't just to get the heat off of him because of Dad, like our parents. It was also because I wasn't behaving properly, and I was messing up, and I wasn't supporting him the way that he needed to be supporting, and I was actually contributing to the attack. It was his whole thing. And I remember we sat all of the kids down one morning we called them off school. I called out of work. We sat them all down, and he was like, "You have to explain to your kids why they are now losing their dad for a week."
Wait.
For a
Oh,
week.
oh,
This happened before. I'm sorry. I'm
so
going
this
a little bit
happened-
behind. I'm backing up a little bit.
No, I know. I get you're backing up. I know exactly where you're at because I remember the phone call, then the text messages of him saying, I need to
Yeah.
get out, me calling you, being like, is this legit? You're like, yeah, this is
Yes.
legit. But I didn't know that he made you like, you were he just made it sound like, you know, our stepmother was just, he couldn't
Right.
handle her anymore and he needed
No,
to
no,
get
no.
out. He said nothing
No,
about you.
yeah. Well, that's what he told you. But, you know, like I said, we had been arguing now for a little bit of time, couple weeks. And, and you know, he took that as, well, I'm just not cooperating with him anymore. And I'm now, instead of being on this path to healing of our family, I am now attacking it by attacking him. And so yeah, I had to sit the kid, and that's when he called you. He's like, I need to get out. We sat the kids down, we talked to them for 4 hours. And that was number one, to let them know that he was coming back, that like they weren't losing him forever, but he did need to get out of the situation for a little bit because of all of the things, all of the just the attacks and the things that Nani and Papa were doing to him. And he just needed to get away for a while. And, you know, shame on Nani and Papa, because, you know, we're here just working on our family, and we are doing so great. And you guys are doing great, right? You're enjoying your time with dad, right? And all the kids are all like, yeah, this is the best thing ever, you know? And I had to tell all of the kids. So that was one part of it. You know, Nani and Papa, they're just evil. And the other half of it was, yeah, and also, you know, your mom is going through a lot of stress with Nani and Papa and with work and with all these things. And she's just not being supportive to me anymore like she used to be. And she's just struggling with a lot spiritually with God. And and I had to play along with this. I had to convince the kids that this was partially my fault, and we needed to separate for a little bit so that I could get my head screwed back on straight. And so he could be removed from the situation in order to give me time to process everything. Because again, I needed an exorbitant amount of time to process, and that was a problem. When he came back with this car, it was like the savior is here, and he brought me a gift. And not only did he bring me this car that he spent an entire week cleaning, but he packed the back hatch full of cleaning supplies and gifts and little, like, you know, snacks and things like that, and like ways to help me remember things. So he put like one of those post-it note holders. He kind of like 3M taped it to the dashboard so that when I when he would call me and give me an instruction, I could quick write it down so I wouldn't forget it. Or, you know, something pops into my head, I can quick write it down so I don't forget. Like, he was trying to provide every opportunity for me to be able to do my job as a good wife. And so he presents me with this just amazing gift with all of these other little ancillary gifts. And this was a big deal because like I said, the savior has returned. And yes, there were pictures. He had a speaker. I think he borrowed a Bluetooth speaker from you for that trip, and was playing my favorite song. So he had like this background music, and yeah, it was like what you would see on like the Extreme Makeover show when they redo the house and then like move that bus, and you know, the big reveal with the music and all the dramatics, and that's how it was. And I looked, oh god, it's a pit in my stomach now because I look back on those pictures and I just know the place of pretending that I was in. I was not convinced. I knew it was all wrong. I knew that. And it was like just a pit in my stomach. And it's a pit right now talking about it. It just was so messed up. And our parents, they did not stick around for this. My dad like did his job and kept the secret, and then, off you go, and they hightailed it out. And he was so mad about that. He was like, they couldn't even stick around to see this amazing thing that I did for you. Like, I did
Yeah,
this
see what
amazing
I
thing to
did.
take care of his daughter, and he didn't even want to be a part of it. Just like, oh my gosh. Okay.
But but mind you, like there was no like because the last thing that the last communication that at least we've heard so far is that you know you guys were not you weren't getting along because you had blown up at mom and or at dad and our stepmother, and he's like, you did this and blah 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 blah, and then like it sounds like, or at least maybe you haven't mentioned it, but there wasn't any type of reconciliation conversation. He just like showed up with a car and like completely like at least it completely was just like personality, the whole mood changed, and he wasn't mad at you anymore. He was just love bombing, unless there was a
Oh
conversation
gosh,
that
that
happened
it was crazy. Okay, so yes, to go back to the parents, there was a conversation the next day of like, let's try to fix this. That was a bad thing. And I think I think they knew that wow, this is really out of character for Jenn. And you know, obviously somebody's in her ear. I think that they just knew that he was in my head. So, but this whole time they had been seeing all this stuff go down and happen, and they could see, they were able to observe the changes in me as time progressed. And, they were increasingly frustrated over the whole thing, but they didn't say anything. I mean, they're very non-confrontational, and they didn't want to get in the middle of it and try to play like, they were going to fix our marriage. And so they just kind of let us alone to work it out. But things just kept getting worse and worse. So, yes, we had a conversation the day after. Gosh, I prepared this whole talk. I wrote it all down, to stay on topic. I read part of it to them. I gave them this whole sermon about the tongue, um, forest of evil, and what James says in the book of James.
yeah.
I think it's chapter 1 or 2, I don't know, and it's talking about the tongue. And I took all of that blame on myself for that whole fight, and I asked for their forgiveness, and I just was like, can we just start over on this? So dad was all on board, I think. And like, yeah, we can just let the water be under the bridge, and that's fine. um our stepmom, on the other hand, now she wasn't like holding things against me. It was, I think if I asked her now, she would say, yeah, it was never about you. It was always about him. She could see what he was doing. And even in the big fight that we had, one of the things that she says was, I just see how you are now. Like when you were with us and he was in Wisconsin still, you were light and bubbly, and you would joke around with the family, and you were present. We would play games like old days, and we would sit around and talk and have coffee, and you took the kids to the beach, and it was just like normal life, and we worked together. Can you pick up hey, I'm gonna be late to work, whatever, like. And she's like, and then he came into this situation, and all of a sudden you guys are isolating yourselves in your room. We never see you. It's like we feed the kids, and you guys come down real quick to eat and then head right back up. And you guys are just never around, and there's no more conversation. And it's just like it went from all of us to now it's just you guys. And it just seems like he's got you on like puppet strings, like a marionette puppet, and he's just pulling all the strings, and he's making you do things that are completely out of character. And I mean, what was I couldn't argue with her. She was 100% right about all of that. So yes, there was a conversation. We kind of patched things up, me and the parents. But But yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything between him. At some point in time, he took dad out for a dinner or a lunch or something and spent like 4 or 5 hours and got dad to talk about his own past and things that deeply hurt him. This formative memories, that was, I don't know. I don't think it had nothing to do with my husband. And uh in my husband's mind, oh, these are things that shaped you into who you are and the reason why you treat me the way you treat me now. And I don't know, man, he got dad to spill his guts on so much. I mean, it was a 4-hour conversation that he recorded. Uh
That dad specifically asked him not to record.
yeah, well, I think at this point dad didn't know that he was doing this. So that request came a little bit later.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Um but I don't know, because there was a point in their conversation that he stopped the recording, and he told me I had to stop it there because your dad specifically asked me, do not tell another human being what I'm about to tell you. And he's like, and so, I'm really trying to build up trust with your dad and build his confidence so that I can help him. He'll open up to me if he trusts me, and then I can help him. So I wanted to respect his boundaries there, and I didn't record that part of it. So I still don't know what that was. I honestly think he probably just made that whole part up. I don't think there's.
Or was the conversations with dad prior to him visiting me, or was that all still happening after he gets back
It all happened so fast. It was a blur. Well, I think it had to have been before you, though, because when he got back with the car, maybe not, maybe it was after. It's just that things with my boss happened quickly once I had a car, but he was bringing me to work several times with that car. He brought me to work. He drove an hour to drop me off at work, drive an hour back home, and then drive another hour to pick me up and drive. I mean, so dumb. But in his mind, it gave him time to get away from the house and have his own thoughts, and then us time to talk. So it was worth the time and the effort. So there had been some time between the car and the end of everything. So I don't know. It was somewhere in that mix. This conversation.
Yeah, it's all a blur. I just remember when he left, because in my mind, because we're heading towards the story where you guys come and live with us. I was trying to recall if I even extended the invitation to come, for you guys to actually come live here, or if that was something that he had asked me for because things were getting so heated at the house in PA that you all needed to just get out. I'm just trying to figure out if that's something that I'm trying to pinpoint that, but it's for me too, because we're getting into the part of the story where now I'm starting to get involved. I think the defense mechanism in my brain is like blocked a lot of that out, and now I'm trying to get into the vault and pull some of those memories out, and my subconscious is like, yeah, I don't want you to do
I
this.
locked that for a reason. We're not supposed to go in there.
I locked that for a reason. I said no for a reason. No means no.
Yeah, well, it wasn't long after he came back with the car, at most 2 weeks elapsed with the car there in PA. And then the whole thing with my boss happens and I get fired. And this is now this is coming up to Christmas. So this is like maybe a week before Christmas at most. And, we let a few days go by to where we were like, let's see how long it takes for them to notice that you're not going to work. So a couple of days had gone by and then somebody said something. And so, then we were like, yeah, my boss, he's just this terrible person and he fired me and he didn't even tell me why and all these things. Of course, it was all the boss's fault. He's just such a jerk,
Yeah.
So, anyway, I remember their reaction was kind of just like shock. And obviously they knew it wasn't because the boss was crazy or mean or whatever, a jerk.
Right.
They knew that something happened with my husband. So, um, so we decide, because things were so bad, the relationship with the family was so bad that we decide we don't want to be there for Christmas. Thanksgiving was all just a joke, and everybody had to put a mask on and pretend that they enjoyed each other's company. So we weren't going to do that again. We were going to go see family that actually wanted us and we were going to have a good time with. So that's when we decided we were going to spend Christmas with you guys. Well, that didn't go over so well, that news. The parents did not like that idea. And so we compromised and said, well, we'll go and spend Christmas Eve with you guys and we'll come home. We will drive home on Christmas Day and make it home for actually I think the initial plan was to drive through the night and get home in the morning so that the kids can open their presents with the rest of the family.
And mind you, that drive
It was
is
like 10 hours.
What? 10
Yeah.
hours?
Yes. So dumb.
No. Yes, because we were in Ohio.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
10 hours. Yes. So I think if you hit all the right traffic and everything, you could have done it in like 9.5, maybe 9 if you didn't stop and stuff. But, so they didn't agree with that, but we weren't really asking permission either. So we were like, we'll be there on Christmas. So that's really all you need to know. So we leave, we go spend Christmas Eve with you guys, have a great time. And I remember that, gosh, I remember pictures and videos from that night too. And it was like, oh, this is so great. We're finally with people who get us and who aren't judging us and making our lives miserable, and we can finally be ourselves around them. So we do that. And again, the plan was to leave that night, drive through the night to be able to be there for Christmas morning. Instead, we fell asleep, and I think I was exhausted at this point already. I hadn't slept well. We drove 10 hours to get to your house. I think I was falling asleep, or looked like I was falling asleep during our Christmas Eve, like, opening presents kind of celebration with you guys. And he did not appreciate that I was falling asleep. Made sure to let me know that. And I think when we went to bed that night, I think the plan was to get up at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And we went to bed, and I was just like, okay, well, I just really need some sleep. Like, I have hardly slept and all this stuff, and I just need to get some sleep. So let me go to sleep so that we can get up in 2 hours and drive. And he was like, oh yeah, you need to sleep. Well, did not stop talking. And like, if I don't respond, if I do not engage in the conversation, he's mad at me. There is no just, well, let me talk to a brick wall and that's okay. So, oh man, I forced myself to stay awake through all of his talking. And it's now 2 o'clock in the morning past it. I'm like, well, we're supposed to get up now and start driving. It's like, okay, well, just keep talking. We'll have a good talk. And like, we'll leave in a little bit. Okay, well, it wasn't until like, I don't even know, maybe 6 a.m. or I think we finally fell asleep. We did sleep a little bit that night. It was only like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 hours at the most, I think. I don't think we left until like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, I'm texting the parents. I'm like, well, we're definitely not going to be back for opening presents, so just go without us. And then it's like, okay, well, I think we'll be back for lunch. Oh no, that's getting pushed back. The time kept getting pushed back because I could not drive. Mind you, we took my new car, his minivan, and Nehemiah's car. Why would we have driven all 3 cars to go see you? But I swear maybe this wasn't the time that all 3 of us were driving. I don't know, but I was just like, dude, I have to pull off and sleep for a little bit. I am falling asleep at the wheel, and I'm sorry, but I just don't want to kill our kids. So we several times had to stop so that I could get a little nap in and then go another hour and have to stop again. So, I mean, it took us a long time to get back home. And by the time we got there, we were like, we just barely made it for dinner. And so we did the whole dinner thing. The kids opened their presents, you know, it was messed up. Everybody was there except for you guys. We did the whole Christmas thing, and then everybody started leaving. Andy and Tim left. I think Courtney left or went to bed. I don't know. Everybody kind of started doing their own thing, like maybe 10, 11 o'clock. Well, our youngest sister, needed to do some laundry. So she was still there. And our oldest daughter wanted to spend the night with our youngest sister. She was kind of getting like packed up and getting ready to leave, assuming that she could do this because why not? And he was freaking out. Like, she cannot go with her. She's gonna brainwash her. And this was the theme the whole time. Like, your family is gonna brainwash her, and they're trying to brainwash you and all the things. So he put the kibosh on that. Well, so my daughter had to tell our sister, like, I can't go. And our sister, I don't know, they were texting, and he decides he's gonna look at her phone, our daughter's phone. He's gonna take our phone and check her phone. And sees in the conversation that our younger sister said something to the effect of, well, my daughter was kind of like, I'm just struggling with all of this, and I just really need to talk to my mom about it. And our sister was like, well, your mom isn't going to help you. She don't care about you because her head is so far up your dad's butt to be able to even notice what you're going through. It was something to that tune. I might have
You're right.
some of the words wrong. But he did not appreciate that. And that he used that to completely blow up. Of course, he was holding her accountable. He was holding her feet to the fire and holding her accountable, and he was doing what our family didn't do, and he was confronting a problem, an issue. So he went downstairs, to confront her and came on her very strong. Well, she's a little kid, does not have the personality that you're going to yell at me and come at me, and I'm just going to back down and take it and say, I'm sorry. So no, she pushed back, and that did not go over well. So they end up in a screaming match. Her mother, our stepmother, runs to her aid. They get into a screaming match. I mean, they're screaming at each other.
I remember because he recorded it, and I listened to the recording.
Right. Yes, he recorded all of that. And I think this might have been about the time that Dad realized that he was recording everything that was happening in the house, or somewhere around that. Of course, Dad got involved to break everybody up and was like, you're not going to talk to my wife like that. And just, all the things. And so, and he came back upstairs. We're all in like the bedroom that he and I shared together. So I'm there with the kids, like just listening to all of this. And we're all just like, whoa, what's happening? And our daughter is just bawling her eyes out and listening to the things that he's saying. And of course, he's bringing God into the mix and everything. And, gosh. So he comes back up, and you would think that he would still be on like the anger momentum. But no, he came back up and he was almost like laughing. Like, can you believe this? And I don't know, he kind of made sort of a joke about it. It was so weird. Well, everybody went to bed that night. Dad said, we'll talk about this tomorrow. Nobody's going to get anywhere talking about it now. So let's just all go our separate ways and go to bed. So we talked with the kids until like, I don't know, probably 2 a.m. And the plan was for us to pack everything up that night and leave and go to your house. And you had to answer your question. Now I don't know if he kind of inserted himself and was like, "Hey, we need a place to stay. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Will you invite us?" kind of deal. I don't know if it was like that, but I just remember him coming to me and saying, "John and Amanda have offered for us to go stay with them." And Amanda texted me and said that she worked out where everybody was going to sleep and just got, arrangements all made, and they're going to make their little 3-bedroom house work to house us. And he was like, "Isn't that so sweet of her? I mean, she's not even related to you by blood, and yet she wants to take care of us and your family. And she's just so amazing." And I was just like,
Audience note of what was just said. You will understand later in the story.
yes, just put a pin in that one, a mental note. So, okay, so that was the plan. We were going to leave Pennsylvania. We were going to pack up that night. Everybody was going to pack up their stuff and we were going to leave. We were going to sneak out and do this while they were sleeping, right? I told him, I'm like, "Look, okay, we'll move. Great. Let's go start over,
Again.
Let's go start over with people who, accept us and whatever. Let's do this." But we can't be spending all night packing and then drive another 10 hours. Like, we just drove 10 hours after just driving 10 hours with minimal breaks in between. And we have not even caught up on sleep from all of that. And you want us to spend all night and not sleep packing and then leave in the morning to drive 10 more hours? We can't do this. So he was like, "Okay, yeah, you're probably right. So let's get some sleep and we'll wake up early in the morning and start packing." Okay. So we all go to bed at about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were up at 6 a.m. and we packed. We packed all day. We didn't pull out until about dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
So, how we were ever going to pack up in a couple of hours and sneak out in the middle of the night, that obviously wasn't going to happen. But we left. We drove to your house. Man, that was just all a mess. This would be a great time for you to interject.
Yeah. So that whole time frame, this is now we're getting into the part of the story where now me and my wife and my family are getting involved because they have now since packed up where they were staying at my parents' house in Pennsylvania, driving to Ohio where we lived, and we're gonna put a pin in that because we're already at about 3 hours here. But if you think that this story is crazy, you're right. It is, now talking about it years later, but we're not done yet. It gets even nuttier. Okay. And hopefully with all this, you guys will start seeing a pattern, and you probably have already started seeing the pattern, and the pattern just gets worse when they come at my house, because everything is all lovey-dovey for a little bit,
Like a week.
and then things start really start going downhill even further. You would think, oh, you can't get more downhill than that. Yeah, you can get way more downhill, and we're going to get into that in the next episode. So stick with us, everybody, for the next episode. We're going to continue on this conversation, part 3 of Jenn's story, and it's a doozy. It's a doozy. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss the next episode because things just get crazy from here. So thanks for sticking with us, guys. If you've experienced, or if any of you listening could resonate with this story, maybe not the exact scenario, but like some things kind of hit home or whatever, just drop a comment, drop a thumbs up, be like, "Yep, I can resonate with her and what she was feeling at that time." Drop a comment below. But for now, we're gonna call this quits on episode 3, and we will pick this up in episode 4. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We will see you on the next one.